Okay, I think you're good to go, Kate.
Excellent. Well, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the dot. So way to start right on time. Well, we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dee Dee, would you just do a brief roll call of those that have attended?
Sure. I see we have Kate here, Megan Wicks. I don't see Kathy Grant yet. I don't know if she'll join us later. Val is here, Christopher Wilson, Arca. I don't see Scart yet. We have Adam and Amy and Lloyd. Also our guests with us are Peter Nero, Kristen St. Germain, and Allison, is it Reyes, or how do you say your last name? Reyes, sorry. That's everybody.
Well, thank you. Okay, so did we have any citizens comment today?
None were received.
None were received prior to the meeting. I think we'll review another comment later in the agenda as well. I've started a new tradition to recite our mission statement at the start of the meeting, so I'll do that now. The Voluntown Board of Education mission statement is to provide our students the skills essential to reach their highest potential in a safe environment for learning as they aspire to become responsible, respectful, and civic-minded members of society. We commit to help educate, challenge, and inspire each child to excel as lifelong learners who can adapt constructively in an ever-changing, multicultural, and technological world. Okay, so at this time, I'd love to welcome our guests for the March meeting. We have Peter Nero, the North Stonington Superintendent of Schools. Welcome, Peter. We have Kristen St. Germain, who's principal of Wheeler High School, as well as Allison Reyes, who's assistant principal of the high school and middle school. I think they're both middle school, sorry. So with that, I know you have prepared a few remarks for as a preamble. We're taking this time. I know you've been so kind to join us at the beginning of last year before the world upended, which of course has made things, as we all know, so very different. And we were delighted to add you as a school of choice for our students to attend. And with that, I think this is a good opportunity for us to hear from you kind of where the world stands with Wheeler since we last spoke, and you know, some of your achievements and challenges through the course of this crazy season that we've had this whole school year.
Peter, I didn't know if you wanted to start before we jumped in.
Well, first of all, Kate, I was with your brother Mike last night for the Board of Finance meeting, and I'm missing the Board of North Stonington Ed Foundation meeting tonight with Chris. And he told me to be very kind to you. So I said, I'm very much kinder to Kate than I am to you, to be honest with you, Chris. So,
right.
And we had a Board of Ed meeting last night before the Board of Finance meeting, and we have the Voluntown Board of Ed meeting tonight. So we're after tonight, we're boarded out for the week. So, so I just want to let you know that we're thrilled to be a school of choice for Voluntown, and I know that we have students who are already kind of committed to the school. And what I'm really going to do right now is, you know, what the intention of this was going back a few years ago when we were approached by another district to do this. And I said, we'd wait for the new building to be open. And as you know, we have a beautiful state-of-the-art building. But the building is just a building. It's just bricks and mortar. It's really what goes on in the school. And being a former middle school and high school principal back in my day, I can tell you, and I had supervised just principals alone in my former district, 25, let alone all the other administrators that I had, that what Kristen and Allison are doing is just phenomenal. So I don't micromanage them. I manage them. And the bottom line is that they do a great job, and they're going to do a presentation for you tonight on where we were when we were here before everything happened, and where we are in the pandemic, and what the future will look like for students who are at Wheeler next year. Thanks. I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Peter. So welcome. Thank you for having us, obviously, tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to come in and brag about our school. We would never turn that opportunity down. And we were also very excited. We actually met the students who've accepted our enrollment at Wheeler. We had a little bit of a walk around tour for them. And I believe 4 of the 5 actually came to the tour. So it was nice to put a face to an application. So basically, Allison and I took our presentation that we did for you guys about a year ago, and we updated a little bit with where we are at today. Obviously, we're really proud of our school. We are a small town high school. We are certainly that family atmosphere that I think aligns a lot to what you offer your students in Voluntown. Allison, are you clicking or am I clicking? I just want to make sure I'm doing this. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, just some pictures to kind of highlight our graduation, our senior bonfire. This year, with the collaboration of Ledgelight, we actually were able to hold our bonfire. So we were excited about that victory in the world that we're in, and trying to give those seniors a little bit of that semblance of normalcy. So we were able to pull it off. But we do think this is a great fit for Voluntown students. So we are thrilled that we are starting next year with an incoming of 5 of those students. Obviously, climate and culture is very important to what we do. We talked a lot when we were last with you about the work that we do with our staff to prepare them for what they do with our students. Our teachers attend NELMS, NEASC, Atomic, Performance Matters, College Board, AP, ECE, all of those conferences that are available, and now obviously many of which have moved to a virtual platform. This year, obviously last March, about a year ago, Allison and I did a major shift with our PD, and we became a Google school with a one-to-one program. And Allison and I actually trained our staff to get ready to go into sort of isolation, because that's kind of what it was. We were in school one day for PD, and then the next day we weren't. But we did work really hard to train our staff in this Google platform that we found ourselves in. And then we worked really hard over the spring and summer to align everything that we were going to do for this school year to that platform, preparing our teachers, getting them Google certified. We created a Google team that could better support our staff, because we knew that was going to be a really important piece to professional development this year. So we really have tried to explore Google Apps so that we can provide the best possible instruction for our students. And I do think we've had a very successful year because of it.
So just to quickly review, we did have some students last year that decided to defer due to COVID, but the past 3 years we've had graduates enter UConn, the Naval Academy, University of Oregon, Middlebury, Northeastern, Fordham, Conn College, Fairfield, Eastern, Johnson & Wales, Southern, and UPenn. So every year right now we're in that process with our current students, a little different, obviously, with test scores from last year and getting them through this process. But we had a couple students decide to defer, but most of them went on and are doing it either virtually, or some actually went to school. So this is what everything is centered around. So our mission statement for our school, our core values, those bullets are really important in everything that we do. We really look to those core values. We've worked very hard to change the role of the students in the process. This year we changed to a block schedule, which was a huge change. So we were in an 8-drop-2, and we changed to a block schedule, obviously for COVID reasons, less groups during the day. So we really needed to spend a lot of time, especially in the beginning of the year, how we were going to use those 84 minutes, still allowing the students, to really be engaged and active the entire time. We have worked hard on our curriculum cycle on our curriculum in a 5-year curriculum cycle. We're almost all the way through it, where all of our departments now have curriculum written in a common format on our website. And then we'll just continue. So the next time through the cycle, they'll review it, they'll add to it, but everything will be written in another year. Supporting the knowledge and skill development of teachers. Kristen really just spoke of that. Right now, our focus is on Google. That was our school goal. That really will be next year also. And then assessment. So assessing student work using our school-wide rubrics. We've been working on this really as an initiative school-wide for 6 years. And this year, the changes that really occurred were how we were assessing, obviously in, all the different platforms we were using. And I would say we've just used a lot more formative assessment versus summative assessment. We used a lot of platforms. Our teachers really use Google, Kahoot, Padlets, Khan Academy, a lot of ed puzzles. So, and the work that went into this was through our team and our common plan time. So our high school teachers meet twice a week, middle school meet twice a week also. And a lot of the focus, once a week, we ask them to focus on assessment, how we're assessing, how we know where our students are at, and changes that we needed to make sure that we were still, kind of figuring out the gaps and trying to fill them. We did do testing. So we did PSAT testing for 8th through 11th graders still. We brought everyone in, and we're offering SAT testing next week. We still did our performance testing, which is our in-house testing, and our STAR. So we did all that testing just to still have the data. And obviously we will focus on that end of this year, going into next year on differences that we need to, differences of the curriculum and what we need to fill for next year.
One of our biggest changes this year was to begin the process to look at our assessments. That was a big takeaway from our NEASC report from 2014. So this year, our program supervisors are working with our departments to better align our assessments so that they are more aligned with what students will leave us with and be prepared to do, whether they go into the workforce, career, if they go to college, whatever that looks like. So right now, we are really focusing on our academic expectations and how do we truly measure growth in those areas. Every teacher has an expectation that's tagged to their course. And then throughout the year, they are creating assessments that align to those skills. And hopefully the goal is at the end of the year, they have practiced those skills and they have covered those skills to the point that this year, obviously it was started because of a COVID conversation, but we did not have our typical midterm exams. And we did that for a variety of reasons. We did that because we were out of school for the entire spring. And we truly just wanted to try to get back those instructional minutes and go back to the foundations and that skill work that we felt was really important. But when exams approached, we put that time back into our daily schedule so that we could be with our students a little bit more. And now we're working towards this end of the year goal where we are going to create a performance task of some sort that actually is measuring those skills. So the old concept of a midterm, when you recite and you memorize the work that you studied in your English class, we're moving away from, and instead we're focusing on what are those skills in literacy that students need and what are they showing that they're gaining throughout the year, and how do your assessments truly tell that. So that has been one of our biggest initiatives and certainly aligned to what was happening with COVID. And as the year end approaches, our teachers are all working really hard to start thinking about what that performance task might look like for their end of the year assessment.
So our social and civic expectations, we have a strong advisory program that we've had that we really work to do this. This year, in our schedule, we had advisory every single day, part of one of our 4 blocks. At the beginning of the year, we really focused on building relationships, social, emotional. We did a lot of social, emotional lessons with students through that advisory period. We obviously didn't offer any trips this year, but our National Honor Society did an unbelievable job. They chose of highlighting small businesses in the area. So every month they went out and they interviewed 2 or 3 small businesses, and then they made a video and they got that video out everywhere. They had a raffle just to promote and help, obviously, the small businesses in the area. So they did that each month. They've made some awesome videos that they've shared. And we continue to do advisory lessons throughout the year. We really kicked off with social emotional, and then, we just continued each month to do a lesson in in that time. Here we also, so each year we do a shoebox drive. We did do that this year. We just obviously had to do a little different. We reached out to 3 or 4 local places and asked them exactly what they were in need of. We did this right around the time that they were opening up, and then we just delivered specific items. We collected, you know, whatever they needed, and then Kristen and I delivered them instead of the students coming to do that. But we still did do this year right around December.
I also want to add that the proceeds from those raffle tickets actually went back into our distance learning. We actually started to be able to purchase webcams for our teachers so that they could create a 2-camera system in their classroom so that students at home could actually see their entire class, and the students in the classroom could see projected on the front white screen the students who were at home, because we felt it was really important if we were going to stream daily and we were going to do what we always do, that we wanted to try to make that classroom experience as holistic as we could make it and as whole as we could make it for our kids, no matter where they were learning from. Obviously, we are proud of the work we've done, and in tune, we've had a lot of success over the last couple of years. We were identified as a school of distinction within our accountability system that the state of Connecticut uses to identify schools that are doing well within the state. For the first time ever, I can't even believe it, we were highlighted for 2 years in a row in the U.S. News and World Report for one of the best high schools in Connecticut. This is a huge accomplishment because we're so small, we don't even end up on their radar to even be analyzed for such an achievement. So to get this achievement, it was really something that the staff felt, you know, pretty proud about, because a lot of the larger schools in the area, you know, kind of outshadow us sometimes because of their size. But I think this is just a testament to how hard we're working to provide our students with those same opportunities, no matter how small we may be. We do continue to provide opportunities for students to earn AP and ECE credit. We have students who go to college with a year of college classes under their belt in some situations. Small certainly doesn't mean we can't do. And I do believe that sometimes because we are small, we are able to do things a little bit out of the box that some of the larger schools around us just can't do. Our program of studies is evolving. We add the coolest electives every year. We've got agri-science 1 and 2, fitness classes, videography, coding. We actually started coding with our middle school students, music production, CAD. So we really work hard to offer as many as we can. And if we can't run them all, we do it on a rotating basis by building a matrix so that what doesn't run one year definitely runs the next year, so that we can ensure that our students are able to take those classes. We do independent study opportunities, and you know, we've seen a lot of success in our state testing and our SATs and our PSATs. More importantly, though, we use that PSA data right from 8th grade with our students to truly assess their skill set in math and language arts so that we can better support them throughout their experience with us 7-12. And then 2 years ago, we actually added Naviance, which has been a huge hit when it comes to preparing our students for what that is going to look like for them outside of high school. Are they going to go into the career force? They study different careers starting in their freshman year. They start looking into college as their freshman year. And then we do all of our recommendations and everything within the Naviance system, which turned out to be perfect timing because many of these colleges are not offering tours right now because campuses are closed. So our students are actually able to get into that Naviance program and tour colleges that they would never be able to step foot on right now due to the COVID situation.
So interventions and support, the major change we've made the last 2 years, we've added tier 2 and 3 support at the high school level. So we've had it at the middle school for many years, but now we actually offer both tier 2 and 3 at the high school level for both math and literacy. We have a math interventionist, that's part-time math interventionist, part-time high school teacher, and then we have a literacy specialist at the high school also. What we did, throughout this entire time, we had in the spring, we had a team that met weekly, a support team that met weekly and went through names in terms of engagement. And Kristen and I were on the team to really just reach out at that point to get students engaged. And this year, our attendance board has met monthly and the support team continues to meet just to look at engagement and how we can better support. We're going to talk more about that later on, but just how we can best make sure all are engaged. We are excited and happy to say that throughout this year, we have had 100% of our students engaged. So we have not had one student that is not engaged, or that we go, a week where we haven't seen or heard from them. Every single one of our students has been active virtually and or in school throughout this entire year.
We still continue those really important career connections. We have a collaboration with the Westerly Education Center in their EB, their pipeline program. That program was suspended last year due to COVID, but we have been already having conversations with Amy to look into kind of rejuvenating it again, because we do have some juniors that are coming to us and asking, is that program going to open again? We really want to do it. And it ended up being such an awesome experience for our kids. This connection with the Westerly Ed automatically gets our students interviews if they fulfill the hours at Electric Boat. And in many cases, they've gone on and gotten jobs at Electric Boat. So it is just another avenue for students who might not want to go on to college or university, but certainly want to get those life skills or those trade skills. And they actually were doing it in our school and getting credit for doing that. So it was a great program. We've had a lot of kids who've gone through it, and we're hoping that once it starts up, we can continue to do that again.
Our senior project, so we have had senior project for many, many years. This year, we continued to do senior project with our seniors. We obviously just made some changes. We did lessen the hours, and some of our students did virtual hours. So if they couldn't actually go and do the 10 hours that we had them do, they did virtual, or they did interviews with people to make up for that. They write a research paper that's connected to their topic, and the portfolio. So in the past year, students would make a binder of all of their experiences and share that on the day of presentations. This year, we've moved to make a Google site. So we're really excited about that change. So the students are just starting that now, but they'll each make their own Google site, and then we can share that. We can get that out there. And we're still planning a presentation. All students will do a presentation. Usually we have a senior project day where we invite the community in. It's one of our best days. This year it will obviously probably be small scaled, but we're still going to do it. We might just have 2 or 3 teachers in each presentation, but we've continued with senior project, and we've just really adapted and modified when needed and helped students find those connections virtually when they couldn't do the hours. This next slide just shows some of our past senior projects, just to give you an idea. So we have surfing, we have beekeeping, we have some Russian dancing. This was awesome. She actually danced for her presentation. Canine training, he restored this tractor, and then we have yoga, and she's actually teaching yoga now, taking a class with her. She's moved on, and she actually teaches yoga classes.
We have 2 pathways at Wheeler that we started a few years ago in the areas of business and engineering. Our actual first pathway group is the class of 2022. And basically the experience of the pathway for a senior becomes a shift of studying the classes and the courses and moves into the field. And we will put our students out into the surrounding communities in these 2 areas. We work with Davis Standish, US Extruders, and a lot of local businesses around us, where we place our students in those businesses and establishments so that they can gain that real life experience. And for many of our kids, they find out after the fact that something that they thought that they wanted to do becomes something that they realize through such an experience that maybe this isn't something that I want to do, which saves them in the end, so that they're not applying to a college necessarily in that area. As they start to study it, if they shift this year, I think we've had 2 students who jumped from the engineering to the business, or the business to the engineering. So I think it just really gives kids that opportunity to start specializing in areas that they may be interested in for the future, without the pressure of, well, what if I go to college and I don't like it? And what if this is what I think I'm going to do, and I get into the situation, it's nothing that I thought. So we work hard to provide them those experiences so that they can really see what that field is like. And we really believe it fosters responsibility and resiliency among our kids. They're balancing school and sports and getting these hours done, their senior project, but it's just another opportunity for them to kind of expand in an area of interest.
Athletics. So the statistic that we like to share is over 60% of our high school students participate in one or more sports. Obviously, because of our size, a lot of our students are able to participate. Where at a bigger school, they might not even make the team. which we realize we've had students go on and play at the collegiate level, UPenn, UConn, University of Hartford, Post just 2 years ago. So our students definitely go on. This year, we were able to have a very successful fall season. Talk with how many games we played. We did end up having a winter season, and we also had cameras installed like many of the schools around us, so that even though spectators couldn't go in and watch basketball, it was streamed through those cameras, which we're very excited, fortunate to be able to have those put in so that people, parents, and everyone could see that from home. And right now it looks like the spring season will happen. We're just kind of working through those details. Very excited. Seems like spectators and somewhat of a normal spring season we're looking forward to right now. This just goes through our sports that we offer each season. You don't need to read them all, volleyball, soccer. And then what's really important is that if we don't offer a sport, our athletic director works really hard to create a co-op opportunity or even a team of one to allow the student to play that. So we've had these are the sports that we either co-op with someone, football, lacrosse, or gymnastics. We've had a team, someone just go join as a team of one, swimming, surrounding teams, ice hockey. So even if we don't offer the sport, we find a way to get the student competing with another team or as a team of one.
We also offer a wide variety of clubs and extracurricular options at Wheeler. What I love is we've actually created a block of time during our school day to provide students with the opportunity to join some of these. Because we're small and because our students tend to be overly involved and scheduled in a variety of things, we came together as a staff about 2 years ago because we felt we were kind of stretching the kids were being stretched a little bit too thin, and we wanted to make sure that if they wanted to do debate or they wanted to be on the math team or participate in unified sports, that they could find time in their schedule to do it. So that prompted us taking that advisory time and taking that week and kind of laying it out so that's advisory. It's also club time for our middle school as well as our high school. We do also offer the same club opportunities after school, but what we found is that we have much more engagement involvement when we are able to run it during that school day, during that last advisory block each day. I mean, we have over 35 options. We have video game design, greenhouse club. We have a beautiful greenhouse on our property that our kids use. Journalism club, which ended up turning into an actual multimedia journalism class. Robotics club, which also turned into a robotics class. So a lot of these times, these clubs are actually started by students who get advisors, and then they kind of just plan it and go for it, and they turn into something bigger than they are. But certainly great resume opportunities, building opportunities for our students, and just getting them more actively involved in their school environment.
And we started the year, we didn't have clubs, and then December we actually started them, and they were virtual, and now they've really taken off. We've been able to do them. Student government is very active. They just did a couple activities for us. So most of them are happening virtually, but they have been happening the past couple of months. And our brand new building, which we absolutely love. We've been in 2 years now. It's gorgeous. I feel like we're really starting to use, so the Commons, this open area, especially with COVID, we're able to use it, separate students, classes have used it, chorus has used it, tech ed classes come out and used it. So it's just really exciting. Our classrooms, are all different sizes, which is kind of neat and cool as you walk through the building and students go, from one to another. But it's just gorgeous, new, bright, and the spaces were really, I feel like, getting to use more, the media center and the Commons especially.
All right, so we thought we would end a little bit with some of the stats that we dealt with in the last year. We really wanted to share this because I think it's important to note kind of how our district specifically was hit with this whole COVID situation and how we kind of move forward between the spring and the fall and to date. So this particular fall, we started the year in hybrid with about 60 full distance students, which was, quite a fair amount for us. And obviously parents had that choice. We entered again in a full return on the 22nd of February. We are down to 40. We did give our families the option, and I don't mean we as Wheeler, but as the district gave the option for families to choose to keep their children in hybrid if they were more comfortable. Obviously, there was no science behind that decision, but the administration felt it was really important to give choice, and knowing that that would keep some of our class sizes down a little bit, because at the time we were not vaccinated, or we did not begin that vaccination process. And we knew that we had some teachers that were uneasy possibly about that full return. We did in the fall, we do full distance check-ins with those students who are fully home. Allison and I meet with them in Google Meets, and we check in with them regularly to make sure that they're not having any technology issues, to make sure that they're socializing, and that they most importantly feel a part of their classroom, because we know how hard that is, that they were not at the benefit of coming in at least 2 of those 4 days. They were home all 4 days. So we made sure that we did that pretty regularly. We only had 2 teachers in our building that were actually teaching virtually, and it went very well. We have per diem subs in those classrooms with them. We were able to put an English certified teacher actually in a classroom that had a virtual English teacher. So we did very well with that. We broke down our hybrid by last names. It was about an A to K, L to Z switch. And for the first 3/4 of the year, that's how we function. Wednesdays were virtual for everybody. They were synchronous virtual days, though. Our teachers were still teaching, but we designed the day a little differently so that in the morning, our teachers had a nice block of time where they could support students who maybe were not doing so well in this environment. During those 2 hours in the morning, they were able to provide one-to-one meets with students. They were just able to really hone in on those students that they identified on a week-to-week basis who needed that extra support. We brought back students fairly early for 4 days. We brought back all our IEP students, our 504s. And then we started really looking at kids that, whether they had an IEP or a 504 or not, were struggling at home. So we made a kind of a rubric to determine how we would decide who to bring in, because at the time parents started, I really want my kids to go back. We just knew that we couldn't take them all. So we developed a system where we would identify students that we felt would benefit from that. So we started bringing those students back all 4 days. Like Allison mentioned earlier, we did do our PSAT and SAT testing. We felt that's really important, because if there are any gaps from that spring, we want to be able to identify them using that data that we've been using right along in our data team meetings. So that was something that we were proud to say we were still doing, and it's going to provide us with that information we need. And then obviously in the full return, we're down to about 40 distance learners. We have a fair number, not as big as I thought in hybrid, but every single day, I think Allison or I get a call from a family who wants their son or daughter to return. And I swear it happens every day. So I think now that everyone's back and seeing that we are able to safely distance our kids, and that this in-person learning is actually just so much more beneficial for all students, I expect that number to continue to drop.
Yeah.
What I'm most proud about is what we do on Wednesdays. And we started doing this back in the fall. We started bringing in students who are struggling out of the gate on Wednesdays. We have probably 5 of the most dedicated, amazing per diem subs in our building that we hired this summer to kind of help us through COVID. They come in every Wednesday, and they are helping students in their meets with the students are still logging into their classrooms, but they're doing it from school. And then those per diem people are there to help them and to pull them aside and help them get caught up. This has really saved some of our kids, especially that population that we identified last spring in our Friday meetings, like who was just really struggling. So we were really proud to keep that going. It's still going. Teachers can put a student in that group each week, and then we make those calls, and we call home and we say they've been recommended to come, and then we just support. But obviously on the 31st of March, that's going to change. We're going back to 5 days. So we're going to have to get creative about how we continue to support those students, because we still will remain in a Google platform, which is really cool. This was something we wanted to do long before COVID, and it gave us that push to certainly do it a little faster than I think we probably would have. But I do believe with all of these things, this is why we've had 100% student engagement.
Just to add to that, throughout this entire year, we've had 1 full remote day. So we've been hybrid, and then we've been 4 days, and there was just 1 day that Wheeler was full remote for everyone. So, we were able to, since we were synchronous from day one, really keep up with curriculum, keep up with where we're at. Our teachers feel really good about covering content and curriculum just based on right from the gate, our departments were meeting and covering what they needed to and meeting to kind of adjust that.
And then obviously impact. These are actually real pictures of our kids. I wanted to share that to give you an idea of what school looks like today. If you look at that picture on the bottom right, that's our commons where we eat lunch. And Allison and I could probably tell you the length and width of every table in there and the distance between stickers and all these things that I never thought that I would know about my school. But we know how important it is to maintain distance when they remove their masks to eat. And we are living by that standard, even in a full return. We've just extended our lunchroom down our PE hallway because we have like the widest PE hallway on the planet, I think. But it has allowed us to keep students safe while they are together at lunch. That top right picture is our media center. Some of the things that we had to do to prepare for the full return, if we had any classroom that had a large amount of kids that we just weren't comfortable with how many students were in there, we rotate kids in and out of that media center to where they can still stream into their classroom, but they're in a safer environment when it comes to that social distance. The bottom left is one of our 2 computer labs. This is the one off of the media center. You can see those plastic dividers. We've done everything we can possibly do. Our hallways are one way. Our bathrooms in every classroom has stickers about wearing your mask. They have capacity reminders about how many people can be in the room. And, the first week of school was a learning curve, certainly for everybody. And every now and then we find a person driving the wrong way in the wrong direction, walking in the corridor where we have to remind them. But honestly, it's gone very smooth. We have been completely asynchronous and on some of those off days in March through the summer rather. But that was tough. When we went out on March, I think it was a year ago
13th,
tomorrow, right?
March 13th.
When we went out in March, it was on a day's notice. We had been talking about it, but I don't think we ever thought it would have gotten to where it went. So we really had to work hard. We had an 8-drop-2 schedule at the time. And we really had to get our teachers comfortable with what was streaming going to look like. So in the beginning, they were more asynchronous. Teachers were recording lessons or they were hosting a live Google Meet maybe twice a week, but they were not streaming all day long regularly, just because we weren't really prepared to do it, but more so because we needed to make sure all of our students had access. So we wanted to make sure we still had opportunities for them to get to work that they were working on. We kept our regular grading system in place. I know many schools around us went to a pass-fail system. We felt really adamant that we were able to truly assess where our kids were. And we didn't want to do that if we didn't have to. We wanted to keep up that grading system that we had. And I feel like our Friday support team made that possible. We had interventionists, school counselors, school psychologists, social workers. We were doing home visits, admin Google Meets, social worker Google Meets. We were doing everything we possibly could in the spring to make sure that our students were engaged. And it was harder, certainly, than it was beginning in the fall when they were coming back into school. Allison, I don't know if you want to touch on the hybrid piece.
Yep. So, and then once we came back, so right from the beginning of this year, we were synchronous in the hybrid model, the 2 days that the students were home. We ran our schedule. They logged into every single class right from the first day of school. And then Wednesdays were still, when everyone was remote, it was still synchronous. So our students had class 5 days a week and ran through their schedule, in their regular schedule every day. We did regular grading. We did, like Kristen had said, got rid of the midterms. That was really the only difference. Just we wanted to pick that time up. And then we added the Wednesday in-person support days, which has been extremely beneficial, just to pick up the students that were struggling, help them along, work completion, figure out where they were at. And then our social and emotional support. So right from the beginning of this year, that is what we focused on. So when we came back to school, we actually asked teachers to spend the first 2 weeks before they moved on to new material. We had the first week of school was just going over all the protocols, and we just focused on social emotional lessons, surveying students, figuring out where they are at, what they may need for that. We had, and then other things that are just on here. So Sandy Promise we're doing this week, which our student government has done an unbelievable job of just offering different activities for our students for that. We had a Spirit Week this year, which was awesome. We just made it COVID safe. kept students apart. We still did all of our different days. Kristen mentioned we did our bonfire. So, we really tried to give students a sense of normalcy and a sense of all of the fun things that they look forward to as much as we possibly can this day. We're planning right now a wellness day in May as kind of a culmination of the year, a full day where students will be offered different activities like yoga, going outside. And then we'll end with the angst. They'll all show that. The parents will see it the day before and students will see it in school. But we've, the social emotional, we've had students that did their goal in social emotional. Our entire counseling team made a social emotional Google classroom that has been shared to our whole school. And they really send out lessons almost every other week just to share with teachers to continue to do with our students. I don't know, Kristen, if you want to add anything else.
No, so really that was kind of it in a nutshell. We just wanted to kind of talk to you about where we were the last time we saw you and kind of what we've done in the meantime with COVID being a part of our everyday experience and how it has impacted us. Obviously, Allison talked about social emotional support that equally goes towards our staff. We've worked really, really hard to support our staff and to make sure that we're there for them through all of this because it has not been easy, but they have done a fantastic job. So that was it. We just wanted to, give you that little overview. If you have any questions, obviously we can answer them, but we're so excited to have these students from Voluntown coming our way, and we hope this tradition continues. We would love to see them, fill our hallways and get acclimated with our North Stonington students. So we appreciate coming here tonight. So if you have any questions, go ahead.
I have a quick question. Something you said really interested me, actually. You mentioned exam alternatives where you're trying to get students away from rote and memorization skills, and you, instead of a formal exam showing off that, you want them to do activities using the skills that they learned in the class and building on the skills. Could you explain some of those, please? And like maybe give an example? And is that in every class? That's very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously this isn't a new concept. If you look at the SBAC test, it is actually kind of built around the concept of students being able to on the spot read something, create a graph, create a project. So I look at my fine and applied arts classes first. They speak very naturally to this. So instead of sitting down and asking students to recite how you build something and what are the steps you go through, students are building things. They are showing at the end of an exam. It's not sitting down for a paper pencil test, but these are all the skills you learned in your tech ed class and your CAD design class. So at the end of it, a perfect performance task might be to take an architectural model and put it to your own scale and create it on a 3D printer. So more of a hands-on approach. In a virtual world, it's a little hard to do things like that, especially when our kids were home and they didn't have access to those things. That's where our Google team over-educated our staff, sharing Ed Puzzle and all of those skill-based activities that we could look at as teachers and know that students were actually performing them and not necessarily just a Google form that at the end of the day, you really don't know who's completing the Google form. You don't know if they're sharing the Google form. So that was the work we did all year with our students, talking about assessment and the power of a performance-based assessment rather than just sitting back and reciting a novel, who the character was, what they did, but instead write a paper or do something a little different that has our students utilizing those skills and building them into the assessment. And since our kids have returned, we are back to the 3D printing and those typical, maybe a drama production or creating a script of something for an English class or Shakespeare class specifically. So I would say it's pretty evident in all of our subject areas, but we've been moving in this direction long before COVID. We know that the assessments are changing and we want to move away from that old school, can you recite the characters in your book? Instead, can you utilize those skills about communicating the main idea or a concept of a story or being able to speak to theme and irony instead of just cross-matching it on an exam at the end of a unit? Allison, I don't know if you want to jump in.
I'll jump math and science. Really, we just have been working hard math to give performance tasks at the end of each unit, and same idea, instead of just, can you do these 20 problems, but put the skills together to, here's a task, you need to do something, work together in groups. Same thing with science, obviously with NGSS, aligning to NGSS. more, here's some data that you were just given and now do something with it versus, you know, like math multiple choice questions where they're memorizing things that, you know, that they were taught. So more performance-based tasks that they're given that kind of uses all the skills that they've learned throughout the semester.
And I think it's worth mentioning that our 4 skills are not, they're learning those and practicing those skills in all subject areas. So analysis happens in math, but it also happens in literature. It looks a little different. So that's that focus that we're doing on our academic expectations, which is NEOS driven certainly, but more importantly, a skill that we want our kids to have when they leave us so that they can be successful.
For the portfolio that you all do at the end of the 4 year, at the senior year, correct? Is that what you do? Does each child have like a mentor to help them pull that together? Like, how does that whole process work? Because I think it's a pretty cool idea.
So the seniors do a portfolio on their senior project, and they do have a mentor. So they have the English teacher that is working with them, and then they have a mentor of the chosen subject. So if they're doing beekeeping, there's someone that does that, an outside adult that they're doing their usually 20 hours. This year was 10 hours that they're doing their hours with. And the portfolio just shows their process from end of junior year to end of senior year. So everything they've done, their hours, they have to reflect on all of their hours. And then they have a resume that they put in there. They have a research paper that they put in. So it's a culmination of this, it's showing off all of our skills through their senior project, which they choose. So, it's really, that's the best part. And that's what they're choosing anything of interest, hobby, possible career. And they're putting that together. So they have an outside mentor, and then they have an English teacher that's really supporting them through.
And their outside mentor comes in on that presentation day in many cases, is there for that student's final culminating project, which is also very cool for them to see the full circle of the whole thing.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Are there any other board questions from the volunteer folks? Well, I really am. I was always so impressed, but to see how much work has gone into all of just the difficulties of this COVID time and all the adjustments you've clearly made from Friday, March 13th, 2020, which, if you can't even believe, Friday the 13th, we all shut down. And the real impact it obviously we all feel, for us that have children and seeing the kids in the community. It's so nice to hear how much investment you're making child by child and in each student by student basis, focusing on the social emotional aspects. Those are obviously so important and valuable at this time, and really honing in on those needs assessments and being nimble and saying that there are areas that we can really, find a future for these changes. Like, as Chris mentioned, some of these assessments that might not be, that might have begun to present themselves through SBAC, but can, show us a better way forward for helping us, these kids show their achievement and their skill and really what they're learning. So it's just wonderful to hear. And kudos to you. I mean, obviously trying to do the asynchronous and then synchronous and making those adjustments is, we have many board members that work in the school systems, and we hear, monthly how difficult that is. And just doing it day to day, just deserve a lot of credit.
Hence my blue light reader glasses. I can't see anymore. But you're right. It's tough being on a screen. And that is another piece I think is important. We designed a virtual schedule that gave our kid a break from the screen. They gave our students that time away when they needed it. And it was still a strenuous day. It was certainly strenuous, but if we knew we were going to stream every day, every period, all period, we knew that was an important piece as well.
Kate, I just wanted to mention, thank you, Peter and Kristen and Allison, for coming to present to the board tonight. And one of the things that we looked at was when You had your accreditation, you had the upgrade on the high school. North Stonington really became a viable option for our students. And just listening to the creative approaches you use as a smaller high school, we see those creative approaches here at Voluntown Elementary School, and we realize that we can offer a wide range of activities. We may be small, but we do quite well academically overall, and there's a great relationship to the parents. And this also gives our students a choice. We have a large high school, a medium size high school, and also a smaller size high school now for our children to select. And I thought that we did have 5 students select the school for next year. And I thought that that was a very interesting start, because it opens up additional opportunities for students and their parents as they make a choice from our 8 designated high schools. And this offers our students a lot of opportunity for diversity as well. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. If there's any other questions from board members.
Adam, if I could say this, these 2 wonderful, young, vibrant leaders that we have here. I've had a lot of principals over the many years that I've been in central administration and been a superintendent. You will not be disappointed. It's contagious what goes on with their staff. And right now, everybody's walking on air and excited. The weather's warm. 80% of the high school teachers last week of the entire school was vaccinated. I got my second one today. I feel real good about things. So you will not be disappointed in the education that your children will get when they become our children at Wheeler.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I echo that. Thank you so much, Peter, Allison, and Kristen, for that excellent presentation. And we are really happy for our the potential for our students to come join you in your halls and your beautiful new building.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
having
sharing your
us.
board. Hopefully we're your last board meeting.
Thank you and
This
good
week.
luck with the rest of your meeting. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, great. Well, that was really engaging presentation. Very interesting to hear how each school has tried to manage the COVID-19 situation. And yeah, I really like the idea of having that Wednesday substitute bring-in model. That seemed really a really supportive system for kids that might be struggling. To just change course for a quick second, I did want to pause to acknowledge that March is Board of Education Recognition Month. It is something, but I wanted to thank all of our board members, since we do have a dedicated month to thank each and every one of you for putting your time in to be a board member. We do have a consent agenda. I was curious if anybody had any comments or questions, or wanted to take time to acknowledge anything from the consent agenda before we move on to the regular administrative reports. Okay. With that, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Chris?
Second.
Val, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Move along to the administrative reports. We can begin with the principal report from Mrs. Cefaletto.
We are coming upon the 1-year anniversary of COVID, so it's not that something that we want to celebrate, but we have talked about it a lot this past week, because tomorrow marks the day that At 3:30 in the afternoon, Governor Lamont said everybody shut down, and we keep going back to, remember when we kept saying 2 weeks, like, oh, it's just going to be a few days. We'll be back. So let's not even worry. We're not going to worry about it. We're going to go back. And then lo and behold, that obviously didn't happen, but we've made it through, and I was happy to hear of all the things that Wheeler was doing. We do a lot of those same things. Again, they're a great high school, as Griswold and NFA. So that was really, great to have their presentation and the things that they have. So I'm going to not go down through my report, but I made my cheat sheet note because the last time we had high school presentation, it took us a long time. So I'm going to try to keep it short. So as far as COVID goes, I just want to give a couple of updates just about what's been happening in the process. Our educators were eligible to sign up for vaccines. That is not something that we can, as a employer, ask, who's had their vaccine or not. If they're willing to share, that's great. Some people are hesitant, and rightfully so, for what they believe in getting vaccination, but it has been open. So the Department of Health, Uncas Department of Health, gave us 2 days where we could sign up through a special link at Mohegan Sun and other sites. So there was a combination of, like, some of our staff was age eligible, and then the rest of us were eligible because we were educators. So some people could go a few different places, and the rest of us would go to Mohegan Sun. At this point in time, it's hopeful that everyone who wants to be vaccinated, educators, would be vaccinated by the end of March. So we're on track for that. Anybody that didn't get an appointment, we do talk to Patrick McCormick quite a bit about, what's open, how many more spaces are open for educators to get vaccinated. So we're moving into that direction. Our reopen committee met recently. We discussed quite a few things. One was the temperature checks. So we no longer do temperature checks. So this is something that we moved away from. We were vigilant and did it for probably 6 or 7 months fully. But, at this point in time, with the declining cases, the minimal cases we've had at school, the reliability of the thermometers outside, it makes it very difficult to be able, somebody's not, 15 degrees. That's not what it is. So, we've kind of moved away for that. We felt comfortable moving away from that, having our kids come in. So our arrival goes much, much smoother now at this point without waiting for those things. So we're happy about that. We've transitioned now. It's almost the start of trimester 3. So we've transitioned back into our art and music rooms. So on the first day, you could have seen some of these kids cry because they were so excited to get out of their classroom and go back to the rooms that they know. They were just so excited. It was like the first day of school again. Our music director and our art teacher, Chelsea, they set up their rooms just like normal classrooms. Everybody has their desk and space. We've been through this before, so it was very just comfortable knowing we know what to do. So sometimes they're in the room, sometimes they're in the music room or art room, and just depending, where they're at. It's really hard to teach guitar in a middle school desk that doesn't move or open. So that was one of the reasons why we're like, okay, we want these kids to have these music experiences, not just on the computer anymore. They need to get back to being part of, what our programs are. We have started this week. I pushed everybody back outside. So I'm like, you have to eat lunch outside. You have to, it has been nice. Let's get outside. We have had recess outside regardless, but lunch outside is a big deal, especially, when you're in first grade and it's windy and your lunch is blowing across, as you can imagine, your lunch is now blowing across the field. So some friends have to stay inside, but mostly everybody gets to go out. It's been great. Today was a beautiful day. Our garden club got out there. They started doing the garden. And then everybody complained because it smelled. So it was like this whole, so this is like our typical fun, what we love and love to do with kids. So it's been really a positive for them. And the sunshine, it just makes everybody happy and to be able to be in the warm weather. Our middle school kids have started wearing shorts again. So those that wear shorts all winter are continuing to wear shorts now. The weather's gotten a lot nicer for them, so their legs aren't cold. I do still require, so I haven't really changed anything else COVID wise. I'm a little hesitant. I don't want to pull the rug and make suggestions like let's stop wearing masks at recess. Let's stop doing all these things. Because we've come so far, I think we just need to see a couple more weeks before we start making those changes through the reopening committee and what would be recommended. You know, I don't want to get too far ahead and then say, oh, we probably should have kept that going for a little bit longer. Our whole goal is to be in school. So if that means to be in school, that's what we need to do, then that's what we'll do. We will take SBAC, so that is coming. So they did not waive SBAC testing. However, our teachers and our teams really feel that for 3 through 8, we can do it. What's great now is we're 1-to-1. So before we used to share iPads and Chromebooks and carts, but now they have a little bit more flexibility when they can take it. It is still regulated and how they have to administer it, but they will take that. Some will take it before, our older kids will probably take it before April vacation, and then 3 through 6 will take it after April vacation. So, we're really looking forward to bringing some programs back. Our reopen committee, we talked about, so now the CIAC is really going forward with sports. So we had a sports discussion at our last reopen committee meeting. We have basketball under consideration now to do like an intramural skills clinic. So that's under consideration. We are considering our track season. So our athletic director has been working with some sister schools like Sterling, Lisbon, Preston on what that's going to look like. Track is a little bit different because there's events going on all over in different groups of kids. So just managing that flow of what track would look like or could look like after April vacation. So we're actively preparing for that and hopeful to get some sort of a season back. We've also tossed around the idea of doing some soccer skills clinics. So those are the sports that we missed out on in the fall and the winter. So we're looking to have possibly something where kids, our middle school kids can come back and do that. As we look to the end of the year, one of the things that I told Adam that I would touch on is that we do have some considerations of what it will look like. We will have our regular summer school in person for our special education students. And as part of some of the grant funding and some of the relief packages, it's asking about integrating schools taking arts and education or music and education, some sort of enrichment activities, and putting them into sometime in summer programming for kids. So we're looking at, first you need the staff to do it, and then be able to say, what could we do and what could we offer for kids who, maybe want to do something in the related arts or music areas. We're also in consideration on that same vein, our kids who are in tier 2 or tier 3 right now, SRBI, we feel that throughout this year, maybe need an extension somewhat of the school year and be able to provide for them some opportunities for learning, especially our younger students and our younger students who were remote that transitioned back in. So there are some holes and gaps there that we're finding that we'd like to supplement sometime during that summer session with them, that it would be an opportunity for them to continue the learning that they had and then pick up some holes and fill in those holes and gaps during the summertime. So those are a couple of different, avenues that we're looking down. We haven't put anything into motion yet. We're working on those. But overall, we're still here and we're still going strong. I always say to people, I get insulted when people say, educators are finally getting vaccinated to go back to work. And I'm like, we've been there since the first day, So I always say to people, we've been there the first day. So we didn't need a vaccination to come back to work. We're always happy to be there. But on another note, we do thank the board. We know it's board recognition month, and just being able to support all of our programs and everything that's happened to us this year. We're always very supportive of that, and your support of us. So anybody have any questions?
I would just like to recognize you and everybody who works at the school, with schools talking about reopening now throughout the state of Connecticut. And there's even some resistance to that. You guys at VES have pretty much been setting the standard for the entire state of how to properly run a school program safely and provide the best education possible to the students in person, which is proving out it's key. The kids that haven't been in school are missing out in a variety of areas. And you guys have done amazing with that. And it's appreciated around town, I'm sure, and it should be around the state, because we really did kind of you guys set the standard here for what the state is still trying to accomplish a year after the fact, when we knew COVID was here. We started back in October, I believe, with full time. And
Yep, we did.
we're setting a standard, and it's fantastic. Thank you. Thank everybody involved. Thank you all.
Maybe we should be in the U.S. News and World Reports. What do you think? Right? Right, Chris? We'll write in somehow secretly. Look at this school.
I think it's just, it's just a dream that we're sitting here talking about you guys getting kids back into their music and art classrooms. I mean, some of these schools are just having trouble getting their kids back in the school. And here we have the luxury of starting to get some of these kids back their sports and their, art and music. It's like a dream, honestly.
It's hard to imagine, because you wouldn't have thought 1 year ago, like when all this happened, like how are we going to do this? And, some of you work in school systems that aren't even considering going back, yet. And for that reason. So, it's worked out well. We've been very fortunate, I think, too. I feel that Voluntown as a town itself has been very lucky in the COVID realm, which is, really great. It's probably because you all live so far apart from each other. That's probably how we can socially distance. But, that's just, the town's been great. And I think that's one of the pluses to that.
And I just want to make a comment reflecting on the work of the Reopen Committee. Obviously, Amy's on it, I'm on it, Adam's on it. We've met weekly since the summertime, just trying and to ensure that this all goes smoothly. And some of the comments that Amy was making about our considerations of even music and outdoors and maybe sports and whatnot, it's all in concert with discussion with the Uncas Health District during that Reopen Committee meeting. So, I feel very, excited for this opportunity with the safety in mind, knowing that, considering all of the aspects of what's happening in town and the CDC and the region, it's in concert with that Uncas Health District on our side. And they've been tremendous partners through all of this, and resources to our nurse and Amy and Adam. It's really just been so commendable to watch, happen. And I feel so much, I can sleep a little easier knowing it's all happening that way. So thank you, Amy. Any more questions for Amy? All right. Well, thank you for the brief update. We can move to the Director of Student Services, Mr. Johnson.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to add my recognition and appreciation to those of you who are volunteer board members. There's still some people in some towns that think board members are paid. And it's a major commitment for the time and the energy that you put into the meetings, but also preparing for the meetings. The packets that are shared with you are quite a few pages, and I appreciate your dedication to the town and to helping the school with your service. It's really appreciated. I too will have a brief report, a couple of items. As Amy alluded, we are in the process of planning summer school. The special education department met today, and we have assembled a list of the students that, because of the issue of regression, we always have to be careful and watch what happens with students with IEPs, especially if they have learning disabilities. What do they lose over Christmas vacation? And that gives us sort of a benchmark as to what we need to plan for them for the summer and offer the families. So we are planning a summer school program again. Hopefully, our plan is that it'll be in person, not virtual, as it was last year. But and the other issue I just wanted to bring to your attention is that my office is in the process of scheduling our transition meetings for our 8th graders, whether they have a 504 accommodation plan or an IEP. We add an additional meeting in the spring for the parents, the student, and representatives from the high school of choice, as well as the case manager, to become acquainted with who the children are, and for the children and the family to see at least one person from that school. Usually there are tours, but this year they had to be virtual. So, but those are really good meetings. A change that came about last year is those students who are selected to go to the technical schools. We still have the transition meeting, but once the year is completed, the technical school becomes their LEA, their local educational agent, and they take responsibility for all of the meetings and managing the paperwork. The students that go to all the other schools that we have as options for them, I chair the meetings as they go through high school. Our office is responsible for scheduling the meetings and maintaining the paperwork and keeping things going for the students. And they have the benefit of people at the high school are also advocating for the student and the family and making sure things go well. So I just think it's a process that works really well, and it's beginning with the scheduling of those meetings. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for the brief update. Always helpful. Okay, we can move on to the superintendent report. Mr.
Okay,
Burrow.
this is a special meeting, a month, board recognition month, and there was a special gift as far as a book that's helpful to board members, and you will be receiving one in one of the upcoming packets to express our appreciation to you as board members. You have my calendar of events for March and April. And then there's the student enrollment report with showing 253 pre-K through 8th grade students and 129 high school students. The list of money returned to the town is now up to $62,640. And there's a listing of what's happening. We did receive our education excess cost grant for special ed, and that was the largest reimbursement on the list, $46,345. Please note that we fund full tuition for special ed, and if any state reimbursement comes in, we just return that to the town. It helps with keeping a stable budget. I wrote a congratulatory letter to Madison Collins, who received an award from NFA. I just want you to know that even though it's on the agenda for tonight for you to, vote to approve the healthy food certification, we just recently received the notice from the State Department of Education that the healthy food application that we sent in last year has been approved. Of course, if that's approved, then we do receive a grant. I think it's a little under $3,000 that goes to the into the food services account. There's a notice about the tuition for adult education, and we have a line in our budget that shows will show $18,383 for next year. But please remember that the state does have a grant and they reimburse half of that. So we full budget it, and then when the money comes into the town puts that into the undesignated fund. I received a letter from Sean McKenna with regards to the tuitions for Griswold next year, and it's also gave their policy for tuition. And their policy is a little unique because it changes from time to time. For next year, when we get to the budget, you'll notice that we budgeted, I believe, $601,000 for NFA. And based on their tuition, that number remains the same, no matter if new students come in or students leave. It's a system that they have, and it does help to stabilize the budget. With Griswold, there could be some changes and fluctuation in the tuition. I included a report that came out from the state finance project, and I'm in hopes that this goes through, because the thing that's happening is, and it's best that I just try to read you what's happening. Voluntown, according to the ECS ruling, was going to reduce our ECS grant next year to about $29,000, and then the next year to 1.9 million. Well, Governor Lamont's budget proposal changed this to $2,117,243 for this year, and it's going to continue for next year. And this means that Voluntown will not receive the previously scheduled overall cut of $87,995 and $175,991, which was a total of $263,000. Now, I've talked to you before about the ECS formula from the school finance project, and in my opinion, that was one of the greatest percentage decreases in the ECS formula, and they were doing that for Little Voluntown. So that means that for next year and the following year, our ECS will not be cut if the governor's budget proposal is approved. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that the legislators will approve that, because I believe that's critical. Making up $263,000 on a $6.8 million budget is significant. I also gave you some information about the Esser 2 grant. And the Esser 2 grant just came in, and we're projected to receive $144,864 as part of the next step of a CRF, coronavirus relief and supplemental appropriation. Now, we talked about summer school. Well, this grant can be used to help extend summer school opportunities. We're running a regular summer school, and we already have that budgeted for as part of our annual process. But in addition to that, we are looking to create additional opportunities. And I'm going to go back to the Esser 1 grant, to the COVID Relief Fund grant. We just finished air conditioning the building. We're having summer school. We're having summer school for the first time in an air-conditioned building. So these federal grants that are coming in, we're trying to use them as wisely as possible to extend learning opportunities to help our children. And as you know, the COVID Relief Fund was $176,639. Now, there's a time limit, and it's for next December that you have to expend the money. We have expended the money, we've used every penny, and we've received all of the reimbursement. And that was the AC, that was air handlers, building improvements, PPE. We paid for remote learning teachers. We paid for extra custodians. We have utilized and documented and submitted and received every single penny back. So that's been completed. And I just really felt that that was so helpful in what we're doing during this time of COVID. And
Adam, I just wanted to make one comment. I'm just looking at the brief summary of the Esser too. They do note the providing mental health services and supports. And I think that's just, I'm sure it was highlighted in the previous ones as well, but I think that's wonderful that if there's any way we can take advantage of that for, ways to bolster our social emotional learning.
And when we just received the application, and what we're doing is we're putting together all of the things that we'd like to see, like with the next grant. We can use that for mental health issues. We can use that for summer school. I want to go back and make sure that we're continuing with any extra cleaning with custodians, and this will extend into next year. And I just think that there's a lot of opportunities, but we have not yet submitted the grant because we just received the application. But the moment it comes, we will be ready. And depending upon what happens with COVID and what happens with the budget, we might not expend that as quickly as the COVID relief fund because we have time to help us guide us through the next budget year. But we will be able to tell the board a priority list. And just like the COVID relief fund, I gave you a list of all the things that we expended for the 176,000, and I intend to follow that pattern. And remember, it was a while ago that we got the Esser 1 grant for the 32,000, and of course we use that for upgrading our Wi-Fi, purchasing additional Chromebooks. So these federal grants have been coming in a timely fashion, and we have tried so much to make sure that we're purchasing meaningful equipment and transferring the money into accounts that give us, help with remote learning and other issues. And quite frankly, when we closed a year ago, we were looking at how do we handle both in-class and remote students when we returned. And it was because of the grant funds that we used that we were able to hire additional, remote teachers to help so that the classroom teacher was not dealing with students in the classroom and also students who were working with remote, which in some ways interrupts the educational process. I'm in hopes that what we're doing will bring back as many students as possible because there has been, I'll get into that later. The other thing is that recently the US Congress passed a bill yesterday, and in that there is direct relief for the school districts. And that's available over multi-years. I have not received the guidelines from that. I've received some indications about what the money might be as an allocation, but I haven't yet, given that to the board, but I hope to have that available next month. And that will help us with some of our short-term issues as well as some long-term issues if we do not have a deadline for extending that. In your packet, there's some K policy highlights. The first one from February 19th is related to sick leave, steps to build a diverse teaching force and funding for IDEA. And there's also the K policy highlights for March 5th, teaching controversial content in the classroom, use of tutoring to address COVID learning loss considered. There's also the CABE newsletter for March of 2021. And then there's a listing of upcoming CABE webinar series related to Education Committee bills. The state of Connecticut, I included a letter stating that Charlene Russell Tucker is now the acting commissioner of education. And Charlene has served in this capacity in the past and is quite capable. Okay, this is something that's coming up and I want the board to know I'm exploring, researching, putting together a number of possible grants to fund the installation of a concrete slab and a pavilion in an area of the VES playground. And this is this is part of a continuing effort to implement suggestions from a site visit from the NEAC. It's an accreditation team visit for our preschool program. They said that they really needed to create some outside shaded areas. Well, in the school readiness grant, we had funds allocated to purchase meals for all of the preschoolers. Well, as you know, the federal government came through with the grab and go breakfast, and they are paying for all of the meals for all of the students in the school, if they so choose to take a meal. So we do have a balance in the supply account. And because this balance has become available, I'm working with the School Readiness Council to see if we can transfer those accounts to help with building and improving the playground. If we can't come up with enough funds for the concrete slab and the pavilion, we may extend some of the blacktop areas to offer children more opportunity to develop large motor skills by riding bikes, using their carts and other things. And as you know, the School Readiness Grant has paid for one of the playscapes. It paid for the little shed out back where we store materials. It paid for expanding the blacktop area outside of the preschool program. But the thing is, the preschool funds are not enough for the complete pavilion. So yesterday I talked a little bit about to the Youth Service Bureau program, because they have outside activities. And then there may be an opportunity to use some of these relief funds to help with the purchase. So I'm trying to do everything I can without implementing and using, Board of Ed funds. So we'll see what can happen with the balances. Now, if you go over by the town hall and behind the old town garage, you'll see a pavilion over there. And the Rec Commission built that, and they have the plans and other things, and they did have volunteers, helping out. So we're looking at ways that we can enhance this, but it has to be in an area that the preschoolers can access it. And when the preschoolers aren't there, students from other grade levels can use it. And quite frankly, at the beginning of the year, we purchased some, canopy tents and other things because we wanted to have outside activities. It did not last. But I know that the teachers that I've talked to about that, their eyes lit up a little bit, because if they have a class and they want to go outside and they have a shaded area where they could have an actual outside class, this could serve as that. So I'm just looking to work with expanding that. I think that's it.
Hey, Adam, just a point on that. I'm a little confused. We have shaded areas in front of the school, but we want to add a pavilion for preschoolers when enrollment's going down year after year after year. Why don't we want to put this money towards something that's better utilized than a pavilion?
Well,
and the pavilion behind the town hall doesn't get used that much either.
Well, good question. It's interesting when you have a regional team coming in to accreditate a program, and they not only go in the classroom, but they go out in the playground and they assess the quality of the program. And right in that accreditation report, their recommendation was to have a shaded area within the outside playground so that they could have this as a place to go in case it was too hot and they needed to have shade. The area in the front of the building, we really haven't used that much for our preschool playground. But that's one of the things. The other thing is that, as I said, we were looking for areas that we could use outside. And this area would really be appropriate to have some outside classes. And it would be protected, sheltered, and it would be an extension of some of the things that are happening in the school. The third thing is that when I brought this up to YSB, they're constantly looking for places that they could go. And it was, I think it was felt that, this may be a legitimate option to look at. So there were a number of factors that were looking at that. Now, the other thing is that I looked at smaller areas, to have some shade as the NEAC accreditation team came into school, and they recommended that, but it just didn't seem to offer the range of activities. So I think it would be good to explore this as an opportunity, especially if you can utilize outside grants and you can extend opportunities for students.
I understand your point, but we only have limited space for the other kids that are in town that our sixth graders, our third graders, second graders, and we're going to now put a pavilion back there the size of or what you're saying is we have plans for the size of the one that we have behind Town Hall, which is pretty extravagant. And I know the back area there, and you've got the solar panels right there, you got the school buses right there, you've got the basketball courts and stuff like that. I think there's a baseball field back there, but yet we're going to put, how much more space are you going to take away from the older kids when you've got shaded area in front of the school? And again, you didn't go on my point where school enrollment is going down. People aren't having kids anymore. So I don't understand why we're going to focus our attention to an accreditation that's probably not going to be needed in the next few years.
Well, as you know, the school readiness program and the grant is based on 44 students. And in order to maintain the full funding for the grant, we have invited some non-resident students into the program. And there's two different points of view. If you service just the students in Voluntown and don't open it up to maintain 44 students, then you lose money on the grant, yet you still have to run the program. And that would be an additional expenditure to the budget. So yes, school enrollment is dropping a little bit, but if we're out on the playground and looking, and if this is located in a strategic spot, I think that we could maintain all of those areas that you mentioned, and also have an expansion of a pavilion that might be between the two areas, so that all students can access this.
Well, I've expressed my opinion on it. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's taken away space from the kids that we have. Most of these kids, like you said, we're now pulling kids from other towns to make up for the 44 students that we have to have there. And again, school enrollment has gone down quite considerably in the last 10 years. It's a noted fact. We can go back and, if you want, research the numbers, and you'll see where we started way back when with Mrs. Chichinga. I'm probably saying her name wrong, and I apologize for that. But I remember when Lily came into the school, we had, probably 100 plus more students than what we have today. And I just think it's an unnecessary piece that we're looking at.
Any other discussion from the board on the comments? I think, Mr. Barrows, if you just keep us posted on where how this might play out, and the future plan of anything. I think obviously we need to take the accreditation team's point to find shade, and find a solution for that. But if you could keep us posted.
Can I just ask one question about something that you had mentioned? A lot of the money that has come in, we've used for our students to get computers in order for them to be one-to-one. Has there been any discussion or planning, long-term planning. I mean, this equipment is going to wear out, and it may be something that we need to start thinking about now. What's going to happen when this equipment starts running out and we don't have these grants? Has that kind of been considered long-term when we have to start replacing these items that we've gotten grants for to buy them initially, but not necessarily to maintain them?
We've been quite successful using an obsolescence strategy, and as new equipment wears out, we've maintained a certain level of funding in that account so that we've been able to replace computers adequately. And with the grants and with the state, we do have enough computers for each student. And certainly as you go through and you look at the wear and tear and wear life, there's kind of a cyclical process with this. And this year, with some of the grants, we've replaced some laptops, we've replaced some other things. One of the things that's happening is that our flat screens have been wearing out, and we're looking at replacing some of those, so they might be part of this grant. But we've tended to get a number of years out of our technology, and we're holding our own with that. And I think just based on what's happening and the care that we give to the computers, you're not going to replace them all at once, but you make sure that you're purchasing some on a regular basis so that you can make sure that the students have some upgraded technology. I was in charge of technology. Actually, I was chair of the technology committee for Region 18, and they had a process for replacing equipment, and they went a little bit different route, and they wound up making huge purchases every 5 years. And we've tended here to look at what's happening and do a replacement as noted. And we've been quite successful with that. So I really have been pleased ever since I've been here in Voluntown, because our teachers are quite skilled with what we're doing and take care of things. The other thing is, I can remember this when I was up here in Voluntown and we were working on things. One school district, I asked the parent, how's it going with checking student work? And she said, well, I'm not sure what my child does. And I said, well, don't they use this special program? And they said, well, yes, but it's going to take the whole year for them to implement it. And I just smiled, because to myself, we received that program in Naviance, and it was here in Voluntown, and we let our best teachers be the forefront with this. They implement something, and I will tell you, it spreads like wildfire from faculty member to faculty member. And what this large school district was taking a year to implement, I think we did the whole thing in 5 weeks. And there was a lot of proficiency, and our parents had access to that. So I do think that the systematic obsolescence approach that we're using with a consistent amount of money in the budget has been helped us maintain our technology, and we've made some upgrades at the appropriate moment. Within the next few months, Valerie, you're going to be seeing some of the things that we're considering doing with some of the relief funds. And some of those are major upgrades with our infrastructure for the lower grades. We did the middle school this year. We upgraded the entire section of the building with Wi-Fi, and we're going to extend that now to the middle school. But we'll do that with some of these outside grant funds. So it's a good question. And quite frankly, the funds that are coming in really will help us with that, because as we get these upgrades now, and if they're done in a quality fashion, even with the smart boards, if we can use some of the, funds to replace 10 smart boards, that's a real significant upgrade in classrooms, because some of the teachers have had a smart board there for 12, 13, 14 years. It's an interesting process. And that's included in the regular budgets that we've had for the last few years.
Okay, thank you, Adam. If there are no further questions, we can move on to old business. It's now 8:39. Item number 1 is the budget proposal.
The budget proposal has been slightly adjusted, and it's currently at an increase of $61,674, or 0.91%. And this initial proposal, this second proposal, again, will probably need to be adjusted because prior to the town meeting, because we're still looking at student enrollment, faculty, and some of the needs with students. But within this third draft, you have the negotiated salaries of teachers, non-certified and classified faculty and staff. You have the projected outplacement of special ed students based on identified needs, although the number in this budget proposal, I believe, will be changing based on current, something that happened recently. The projected cost of tuition based on the numbers attending 8 designated high schools. An initial projected increase of 8% on the cost of health insurance, that may change. Projected energy costs. And then also there's a projected cost of a 0.6 FTE foreign language teacher. And the board has been wanting to look at implementing a foreign language program. And, the cost of hiring a full-time teacher was significant. And quite frankly, we've had some communications, and Franklin needed a foreign language teacher 2 days a week, and we needed a foreign language 3 days a week. So we developed a plan, and Amy and the principal of Franklin Elementary School have been meeting and looked at how this would work and how they could fit something together. And we want to advertise for a teacher, and the person would be interviewed by Franklin and Voluntown and also be shared. And this would allow us to, work with another school district to shared services. Amy, if you want to mention anything about your communications with the principal.
So as far as what we were looking for was, I felt that it was important that I had somebody that was full days. I did not want to share somebody driving between here and Franklin. The waste of time I don't even know where Franklin is, how long it takes to get there, but I felt like it would take more than a half an hour. So from us to there, it was almost like a waste. So Mr. Keith and I talked about how he could use 2 days and I could use 2 days, 3 days. And what my plan is we are going to embed that in our block scheduling for our middle school. So they will have during their specials time. And so every so many weeks, they'll have that opportunity of language every couple, 3 days a week. And then my hope is that our K-4 will get an exposure once a week. So they'll be able to be exposed to a lesson, in a foreign language once a week as part of our program. So exposing our K-4, and then our 5 through 8 will be getting lessons 3 times a week, different times during the trimester. So it's kind of how it's going to work out for us. Hopefully, scheduling wise, I hope so.
So this currently is the budget projection, but based on some of the things that are almost happening daily, this number may change. It will change, prior to the April 8th hearing, but we need to move forward because we still don't know what the final outcome of the income is and what we'll be receiving from the state. So therefore, in this March meeting, the Board of Ed has to vote to approve a budget proposal to forward to Town Hall. And that would be used as the basis for the discussion at the public hearing on April 8th. And with the public hearing, I know a week from Saturday, there's going to be a town meeting in the gym, and the first select woman is looking for a way to, complete a hybrid meeting so that they can have public input and work with things. And if that develops, we might wind up having a similar format in the gym for our public hearing. I really think with some of the things that are happening with budgets, we usually go to a town meeting in May, but we might not have all of the money until all of the money allocations from the state until toward the end of May. I won't go through all of the statements as far as the the backup information with history. Deposited funds, our budget increase is 61,000, and we've already returned 62,000 to the town, it makes it kind of interesting because I know that we always want to look at the mill rate, and we also want to look at the the overall budget increase. The other thing is to help the town. We have a 0% $0 increase for a capital improvement plan in the town, and with the COVID relief funds, it's very interesting because we might be able to further upgrade our air quality and not have to use town funds or the school budget, but utilize federal funds. I can go through each one of the budget pages if anybody has some questions about any budget line items. I think that we went through that the last time.
Adam, were you able to try to allocate any prepaids from this year to try to keep next year at 0% given COVID and people still out of work and things like that? I know we were able to prepay.
I didn't catch the first. Was I able to do?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, sorry. Were you able to allocate and prepay things this year to try to keep that flat again?
And Megan, good question, because we're going over budget balances right now. And at the last meeting, you talked to me about the van, and I found the funds for that. And what we're doing is looking at ways, so that may impact and that may get this increase down. And rather than saying it's going to go up, I would like to see if I can again come back with a 0% budget. I must say, though, that there's been some special ed challenges, and we may have one significant increase in the cost of special ed, and I have to factor that in as well. So there's some terrific changes happening during this month of July, and I hope that I can resolve some of those by the April 8th meeting. And in effect, this is a 0.91% budget with a $61,000 increase. I may come back at the April meeting and say, look, we went through and we could save some money here and there. So this is the new proposal, and, but we would be able to identify the areas that were changed, Megan. Very good statement. Can we repeat it? Maybe. And I will tell you, once we get the allocation from this current legislation that happened at the federal level, we may have some additional flexibility. And there's a couple of things that I'm hearing about the use of that fund that may help us with just what you're talking about. I'm available if you want to call me personally to talk about any issues. We've been going through the budget completely, you know, since January, and the point at this time is that the Board of Ed needs to make a motion to approve the budget and the number as I presented it, and forward it to the town hall for public dissemination. And the community will get this report that I just sent to you. And I do have citizens. Beg your pardon?
Every budget hearing, I kind of say the same thing. We have declining enrollment, but higher budget. It just doesn't compute with me. And
well, a little bit later.
Any increase.
A little bit later, you'll make a motion to eliminate a teacher. So there's a systematic process that we're going through. And please remember that the high school enrollment may not go down that much. And that's been pretty consistent based on the enrollment report for the last few years.
Well, I think it's I'm happy with the creative solution about a foreign language teacher that seems to incorporate some of our sentiments to be fiscally responsible while allowing a program to happen. And it sounds pretty, that's what I'm most excited about in terms of this presentation. But again,
yeah, I just think it's challenging to, in this economic climate, to increase a budget when people are struggling and add a program. I don't know. It kind of doesn't sit well with me, but I mean, obviously what the board says goes, but I just think it's a challenging climate for everybody. And I'm just cognizant of people out of work, and it's just a tough pill to swallow to increase a budget in general. But, you know, like I said, I guess I'll defer to the majority.
Well, this budget right now is sort of like a picture of where we're at this time, correct, Adam? And then as we go through, we're hoping to make more changes and modifications to decrease what we see as an increase right now, what Megan's referring to, correct?
Absolutely. And you have the April meeting, the May meeting, and the first selectmen have been very gracious if we needed to take the June Board of Ed meeting to look and see what's happening. And, you know, as superintendent of schools, my budget proposals have to give the board what I think it would take to continue with the, you know, an excellent educational program. And this budget right now with the $61,000 increase is where we are at this point in time. And please remember, last year I started off at like it was 2.7 something, and we wound up with a 0 because we watched the balances with what's happening, and the Board of Education was able to do things during these last 3 months, during the last 3 months of school, to get to 0. So we hope to, you know, we hope to maintain that and work on that.
And
Okay.
Adam, I'm seeing a 5% increase in instructional related technology from last year to this year. Is that something that with this relief money that's coming in, that could pick up that extra, that 5% and bring that down with respect to, because you were speaking earlier to,
yes,
you know,
some
the
of
money
that.
coming in for.
The biggest change in that is tech-related maintenance and repairs. And, please note that, the budget proposal is a slight increase. That's related to repairs and anything that we might have to do with technology. So that's why that went up the 5%. In retrospect, please note that in 2017-18, we spent $257,000. So there's been some trends, but we've been able to maintain our inventory, and this is our regular technology account. This does not have any of the COVID funds in there. That's a separate grant.
Right, but a lot of the things that are being paid for out of this account could be paid for out of the COVID account, or is that?
The COVID account is upgrading the infrastructure, the Wi-Fi and all of that. The COVID fund is allocating funds for Chromebooks for every child and touchpads for kindergarten. The COVID funds have been used for paying for additional time for the technology consultant. And this is the regular budget to run the regular program. This is the base. This is the year-to-year trends that we do. And all of the other things with COVID are in addition to help us through this time. But they will help us in the long run, because if we're purchasing quality equipment and we take care of it, then we might not see a huge spike to replace those. So if something happens to a computer, I might use that repair account to have it fixed.
Adam, how much was our ECS cut projected to be this year?
Yeah,
80,000?
About 89,000, but we might not get cut. So if the governor's proposal is approved, we're not going to get a cut. If it's not approved, then I have to go in and find another $89,000, Chris. So this is the challenge, and we won't know until the legislators make a decision.
And we shouldn't make a judgment on this budget until the legislator and the feds come back to us and tell us what we're getting.
That's
You cannot
right.
approve in any business, when you go through budgeting, you do not approve a budget until you know what funds you have. We have declining enrollment, just like Chris says, and we should be cutting. We shouldn't be spending. We should be cutting. You cannot put this on the burden of the taxpayers anymore. We have many of them in our town that are out of work, and every year we hear the same violin come out. So I would say, let's go back to the drawing board and make the cuts that we need to based on our enrollment in the school.
Sorry, I think he's talking about, there are cuts being made, proposed. The only thing I added at this point is a part-time foreign language teacher, which has been on the table for 15 years.
Yeah, unfortunately, we
Is
don't
a
have
lack
the money.
in our education.
We don't have the money. It's time to start saying we don't have the money. And that's the way it is.
We've said that for 15 years, and our children have.
They haven't suffered. They haven't. No, they haven't. They've gone on to excellent high schools, excellent universities. Hold on. My daughter Lily got accepted into 4 different universities without a language. So please don't say that they're getting hurt because they're not learning Spanish or Italian or French in 5th or 4th or 3rd or 2nd grade. They're not.
I'm not saying that they're hurting. I said that this is, if you look elsewhere in all of the other surrounding schools, they have exposure to the foreign language programs. They go on to high school, they can't go into those entry-level programs that their peers are going into because they have zero exposure to it.
So they start from the beginning in 9th grade.
But that means that they're a leg behind, and we should not
How are they a
have
leg
our
behind?
students in Voluntown be a leg behind.
I don't see that at all. And the proof is in the pudding. I have kids that are going through it. They're not behind.
Well, Lisbon
and honestly, some of the kids aren't taking these electives until 10th or 11th grade because they're so heavy on other things that they have to do in 9th and 10th grade. So everything that they did learn or prospectively learned in elementary school has been already erased.
Adam, you mentioned
Erica?
we have a teacher cut that we have to discuss later on, and is
Yes,
this
yes,
have- but
this
we have-
budget does not include that
does
teacher.
not include that right now,
Yes.
correct? So I'm going to say again, this is just a snapshot that we need to have at this time, but we will continue to work toward a 0% increase.
Correct.
Erica, do you write a check before you have the money?
We're not writing a check, Scott. No one's
Yes,
writing
we
a
actually
check.
are.
We have
This
to
budget is
propose
going to
something
stay
to the
in place,
town
just like it has
first.
every other year.
We have to propose something to the town to work from. It's a baseline.
When we know what we
to
have
work
for money, then we can make a proposal. That's how it's done in every business and every bank and every household in America. How can we propose this to our taxpayers, some of which are struggling and are not working on a declining enrollment, and we want to
revisit
increase
this,
it by
correct?
61,000?
We
That's
revisit this. I'm not sure this is a set in stone budget is what I'm trying to get clarification. This is what I'm understanding.
This is what's going to be proposed to the town. Yes.
So Adam, can we do, just as, we said this is a proposal, but we can drop it. What if we flipped it and said, look, we're going to try to get to a 0 increase. We propose 0 to the town. I know we don't like going back to the town for money, but if something comes up, this ECS money doesn't come through, obviously the circumstances change, couldn't we do it just the opposite of, going to them for the increase and dropping it? Can't we go in at 0 and then say, look, we didn't expect this XYZ, and so now we do have to increase? I mean, is
Well,
that a possibility?
The Board of Ed could make a decision to have a 0% budget tonight. But the other issue is that, as I said, this is a presentation about what we're proposing to meet the needs of students and to meet some, goals that we've had. But at the April 8th meeting, that's a public hearing, and we will hear more information. And by that time, I may have more information about what's happening. Christopher mentioned, when will we know and what's happening with, ECS funds to the town. So there's an opportunity for the board to make a decision on April 8th and say, we can't do the 61,000. We're going to have to do 0, or we're going to have to do another number. And I will have more information on that, because right now we do not know the estimated income, and that may change. And please note, in years past, we've had to delay. One year we had to delay the budget until December 20th until we found out what the income was, which means that we run the school district on this year's budget next year. So, you have two choices. You can cut this number back. You can vote, have no 0 increase, and I'll make adjustments within the budget and give that to the town for the next meeting. Or you can present this to the town, and I know I have citizens who come in and they really want explanations about a lot of things, and that's what we do, and that's part of the budget development process. We're not going to get the final budget tonight because there's expenditures that may be coming in that we have to make adjustments for.
In the past, even a 0 increase has been a burden on the taxpayers. Last year, I believe we had an $80,000 cut as well. So we may have made up with the rainy day fund, but if that didn't come into play, that would have been a $500,000 foisted on the taxpayers. And now if we get the 90,000 ECS cut along with this $60,000 budget increase, it's an astronomical thing. We can't discuss a 0 budget without mentioning cuts coming from the state, because those aren't just magical numbers that go away. Those are made up from the taxpayers every single year. That has greatly accumulated over the past few years.
The school board budget, the average for the last 4 years has been minus $2,965 a year. And last year, the school board did have a 0% budget, and it did not affect the mill rate based on any increase by the school budget. So, we've been trying as much as possible to make sure that we've, in the school budget, had consideration for the local taxpayer.
So it sounds like that with the choice, that my understanding is that we have to submit something. So it sounds like the majority of our board would like to have it be a 0% increase as presented to the board or to the town for this first round. Is that correct? Is that,
Yes,
we feel that's, if we have to submit something?
I would agree to that.
Okay. Do we have a motion to do that?
The increased
No
money,
zero
is-
increase?
yes, just so you know, the increased money is the foreign language teacher.
I make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chris? I think at this point it's, Adam, I think we have choices through all of this. And, if it's there, like we said, there's teachers involved, there's other things involved. There's a lot of areas that can come into play between now and April. So I don't want to specifically call out one thing or the other. So, but I think we have agreement that if we present it for at this point, no impact.
So, Kate, what you're saying is look for other areas to find $61,000.
Where possible, yes.
Okay.
And that we look at it in April. I mean, it's kind of out of our control where we might find, cost adjustments. So, but we have to be cognizant that it could come or could change at any moment. We don't want to hurt the town. So are we all in favor of that or any opposed? All in favor? Wait, did we get, okay. Any opposed? A motion carries. Work your magic, Adam.
Just a quick question. I know last month Kathy had mentioned looking at other like technical curriculum, like if there are programs out there, you guys obviously would be more familiar with that. Is there anything like that out there, Amy, that is worth looking into?
For foreign language? There probably is, and honestly, Valerie or Arica probably would know better than me at the high school level if there are more online programs. We were looking for more so, an in-person program for them, but I'm sure there is. I think it would just be to find it. I would assume, and what it would be and what it would look like.
It's actually, we're finding, we did a search, it's actually kind of expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the technology-based, computer-based programs for foreign language, it's still it's still pretty costly. I can't recall a number off my head. I remember hearing how much, and I said, "Holy cow!" Mm-hmm. So, but
yeah, I'm just kind of curious.
Investigation. It's worth looking. Trying to see, I think for sure, but.
The other reason why I asked that question is because I know, Amy, you had mentioned that you were kind of thinking of doing it on like a rotating schedule, and maybe I misunderstood what that meant. But if we could, I think that with having it, like if the students are having language for 2 weeks and then not having language for 2 weeks and then having language for 2 weeks and then not, there's obviously that regression. I would assume so. I'm obviously not an educator and I don't pretend to be one, but if we had something technical, would it give us the opportunity so that your students could have it 2 days a week consistently or 3 days a week? And would that be more beneficial than having that rotation of somebody in the classroom?
It's possible. And that's, for those upper school kids, that's how their block schedule is. So they share that specials rotation with 4 other specials divided through the trimester of however many days it is. So it's like 12 days per special, on each flip side. And it might be, so then the question would be, what does that look like? who's monitoring this program then? You know, is this a required course? Are we grading it? So like, you know, sometimes if there's not something attached to it, then when are they having the opportunity to do it? So that would take a little bit more, you know, thought and consideration about that aspect of it.
And then it's like more screen time. So that's another piece that's there too. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I just would hate for something to be watered down.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to be creative, you know, and just
Yeah.
think outside the box, which is good to do.
Yeah, I mean, my bigger concern is not having it, you know, consistently throughout the year. And again, I don't know the beginning of you know, what students retain and how and at what age and stuff. It just seems to me like that would be a concern of doing that block. But just some food for thought, I guess.
Yeah, I think the in-person with the older kids is probably the most important part. I mean, our kids aren't able to take, you know, an AP level language class when they get to high school because they haven't had it before. So, you know, an in-person is going to be kind of what you need in order to get the kids to that space.
Thank you for that comment, those comments. So we're moving on, I think now that, unless there's other questions about the program. Item number 2 in old business is COVID-19 update. I'm not sure if we've covered all these points yet.
Yes, well, we did with the grants, the COVID relief for 176, the Esser grant that's coming in for 144. And then the reopen committee has made a transition from weekly to bi-weekly meetings. And of course, we've been coordinating things. I can't say enough about the Uncas Health District. And of course, the first select woman has attended many of the meetings as well. It's important to note that staff rosters were submitted as directed by the Department of Public Health through the secure VAM system in a recent effort to create the opportunity for employees to secure an appointment for a vaccination. And this is part of an effort to help with, returning the students to school. Our kindergarten, of course, our kindergarten through 8th graders have basically been fully in school since the start of the year. This is the 118th day of the school year. And we've really only missed just a few days, just based on the need to train for our remote days. And we really would take this as a weekly basis, almost a daily basis of whether we would have to move back to remote, but we've been successful. We didn't have to do it. So at present, right now, the projected last day of school for students is June 17th, 2021. And please remember, when we canceled school 5 days due to weather, students did not have school. Many other school districts went to remote learning, and we chose to use available days so that our students would not have to have remote learning. They'll benefit from in-school, in-person instruction during those 5 days at the end of the year in June. That's it, Kate.
Any questions for that, or we'll move on to transportation?
Just briefly, I think it's fantastic we have real snow days. I just think that's huge for the kids. It gives to look forward to that, the excitement, the hanging out at home, the playing. I think that's priceless. And I'm very happy we still offer.
Yeah, too many kids had to go to school this year because of that. And so I agree with you, Chris. You know, we made the right calls on that.
We just hope we don't get any Lions of March coming through to get rid of the agreed upon 6 days, and then all of a sudden we're kicking ourselves in remote learning. But let's just keep this sunshine coming. All right, so item number 3 is transportation, the bid
Yes,
for.
I just gave you a copy of the board approved going out to bid at the last meeting. And I just gave you a copy of the spec sheets that we're publicizing to get a quote for a van.
Adam, refresh my memory. What do you do with the bids? Is it like you put them in the paper, or for a van, do you go to dealers, or how does that work?
Well, we would advertise. We would seek quotes. There's a whole process. There's also COSTA, the Connecticut Organization for School Transportation. So there's areas you put this up and we will get bids. And they're going to be due 2 p.m. on Wednesday, March 31st.
Any discussion on that? No discussion. We'll move on to the item number 4, wellness annual report.
Yes, I just did a summary of some of the things that are happening with wellness. Of course, we provide our health service. We have physical fitness and health education. We comply with the policy with having an indoor air quality tools for schools meeting. We promote wellness activities. We update our 504 initiatives, and of course, our 21-22 budget proposal, does have annual funding to implement the policy, and we've been quite successful. And then the board annually authorizes the sale of food and beverages. So that's just an update of where we are with the wellness initiative. And I just documented an updated report so that if I have to complete a compliance review, I can use these board minutes to show that I gave the board a brief update of our wellness initiative.
I look forward to next year going in person to be part of the meeting with all the various constituents of the wellness program, because I always enjoy those meetings.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If there are no other questions on item number 4, item number 5 is maintenance priorities.
Yes, I just wanted to make a statement because the COVID, the Esser 2 funds are being released, and I need to look at that because, as I said, there might be some maintenance items that we can do, and that will affect some of our maintenance budget items for next year. So I'll just come back with some of the priorities, and I hope to have some description of what we're asking for in the next Esser 2 grant. So that's just a verbal update.
Okay. And then item number 6 is the J1 request.
Yes, this is a letter from a citizen in town to the Voluntown Board of Education. I mean, do you want me to go through and just read it? I mean, this is about, or just to summarize it.
Well,
you have a copy with a packet.
Summarize it would be fine.
This is
I
from.
read it already.
Yeah,
Pardon?
it's in the packet. We've read it. We can just summarize.
Yeah, I read it.
That'd be great.
Okay. This is a request. Remember, this is a continuation of the request that we had from last year for a J1 student from Spain who was interested in coming to the United States for 1 year. And we were going through that process, and then everything was shut down in March. So the request could not be processed. Especially during the time of COVID. And now the request is back. The student is requesting to go to school at NFA for the junior year. They live here in town. This is a letter from Terry Hallowell, and she indicates that it's become a family tradition to host students from other countries. In our family, we've hosted students from Turkey, Japan, And they reside on Beach Pond Road since 2013. They've been paying tax money toward our schools and community. They do not have children in the school, but friends and children are familiar with the opportunities that we provide. We feel strongly and think it is reasonable to request for us to be able to host a student from another country and be allowed the same rights and benefits to send the student under our care next academic year to a high school of our choice. And they chose Norwich Free Academy. In closing, as a premium property taxpayer based on our location of residence, we hope to be afforded the same rights and benefits as other taxpayers who are caregivers of children. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. We hope you consider this request, and we look forward to hearing you and the school board. Now, I received another letter from Carrie Felice Murray, and she is the local coordinator with the exchange program, Counseling on International Exchange Education. And she has been in correspondence with me, and she noted some very positive qualities for the students coming in. And she said that their organization is nonprofit. We place J1 cultural visa students. These students may only participate in this kind of program one time. Our Department of State heavily regulates this program. She said she hopes that the board finds a way to place the student in one of your sending high schools. An exchange student can bring joy, seeing many things as new and exciting, and inquisitiveness from fellow students. And I believe after this period of time, we have had social distancing so that it would be okay to honor the placement. So yes, most school districts have their own high school, and therefore they have what I call is a thing called the ability to absorb. So if a student comes into that community because they have a high school and the board has already set that up and paid for that, they're not going to get a budgetary increase. And the issue with placement at NFA is that eventually we are going to have a cost, and the tuition this year next year at NFA would be $13,375. So a decision to accept this student would be at some time the board is going to be faced with paying for that expense. I do not have that extra money in the budget proposal. So this is a question of taking money from other accounts to fund this. But this is a board decision as far as what's happening. And I just wanted to give the board the information regarding this request.
So I was trying to think about, I guess the J1 idea was a bit confusing to me because I'm not very well versed in visas. I think if I recall, ARC had talked about NFA having F1 visas and J1s being something more of like an internship. But the more I looked into it a bit, it is like, what I understand is like a cultural exchange program for students and families to have a one-time shot at this type of experience. So I'm a little more well versed in it.
Are we? Does it have to be NFA? Can it? Is it that's what they chose, or
that's the request that the parents made.
I think, we've already tasked Adam with a zero budget. I personally don't think it's reasonable to ask him to come up with another 50. You can only get so much from a stone, right? So
yeah, it's just tough because you want to promote people, you want to have these opportunities for these kids to experience this. It is a one lifetime, but we do
But
have.
because we don't have our own high school, this is right.
coming
Like
to
if we could just allow them to go, we already have the teachers, we already have the curriculum, we already have everything in place.
Yeah.
Then
It's so
obviously
hard,
it's
yeah,
no
being a
brainer.
sending school, correct,
Right.
yeah.
And we're coming out of a really tight year in budget, and that's tough. That's really
No.
tough.
Please note that we do have transportation in place, so adding one student on the
Oh,
bus
that's right. So
would not be.
what Kathy recommended last month, I believe, was that we would not cover the tuition, but we would allow them to take the bus as part
Yes,
of.
yes.
And I think that I would be comfortable with that if everybody's okay with that.
So
Well, yeah,
so the family would be responsible for the 13, but we would pay for the transportation. Is
Yeah,
that?
we would allow them, we would transport them.
We've already set up transportation, so we have the ability to absorb one more student in
Yeah, okay.
transportation without cost.
Yeah, that does. Okay.
Yeah.
Adam, does it impact this year's budget, this upcoming year's budget?
Based
To
on what
incorporate.
happens, earlier I mentioned that we're paying $601,000 in tuition for NFA. That price would not change. It's projected $601,875. That's the tuition set based on the October 1st enrollment. So this tuition would be paid for out of the 22-23 budget.
Oh.
And just to let you know, currently with the number of students going to NFA, I already have a projected increase next year of $53,500 in the tuition for NFA because there's more students going there this year than what we're paying tuition for. It could change. This year we had, the 4 students would be 53. So, there is an increase in the NFA tuition projected for next year.
Adam, when do you need an answer for this? Is it this meeting today? You need a final answer?
I think that Megan mentioned something about a consideration. I would write a letter back saying the Board of Ed met and they made a motion to request the parents request that they consider, we can supply free transportation, but there's a need to help with tuition.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to think about because I think it is such a blessing to introduce people of other cultures into our town, into our, educational community. I absolutely think that's a wonderful concept. It makes me sad that, this is, something that it's put on us to make a decision just based on dollars and cents. And obviously I don't want to burden our local taxpayers, but they are local taxpayers, right? So we're making a really hard decision, but I obviously we need to rely on the board's majority focus on this. So, but I do, it is hard to not acknowledge that it would be such a wonderful opportunity for that cultural experience. Do other people have any questions, or is it, I know it's a little bit confusing that the idea that in another town, it might be different because they have a high school to send to.
I think Megan's idea is something we can, put out there. Like we said, a letter to the family saying this is what we have available.
And then we come back to this at the April meeting.
I'm actually kind of torn on this. I totally agree with Megan on one side. On the other side, I'm with you, Kate. I think the opportunities of introducing foreign students long-term to American culture is just great for our country in general. And I'm really torn on this. It's hard to make
Just said it's hard.
and I'm listening to everything everybody's saying, and I'm having a hard time. I'm leaning towards provide the transportation and have to pay the tuition,
Yeah.
but I'm not totally there. I'm torn here because of the
Yeah, I just think, and
aforementioned region.
just for the record, I can't take credit for that. That was Kathy's idea at the last meeting. But I do think, you do get a little with them if they utilize our transportation. There is definitely at least a little bit of exposure. So, it would be wonderful if we had our own high school, but it would just be a no-brainer. It's just this challenge with
One additional piece of information. This year, the cost for tuition at NFA is $636,265. And next year, the cost of tuition, as I mentioned before, is $601,875. So it depends on the number of students that actually go to NFA. And, we're projected, we have 13 students who have signed up for NFA. What if some of those change? And therefore, if we had some students who, from now until the end of the year, changed high schools, our tuition for the following year might remain the same, but NFA raised their tuition this year, but because we had more students last year, it's always a year behind. So there could be something financially with the enrollment that might make it a flat budget. But there's a lot of ifs on that. And then the other thing is that the question always comes up, are we opening up, a Pandora box for, some future things? And this is one of those real tough budget decisions.
Well, that's why I was asking, are they married to NFA? Are they married to that school, attending that school? Or could they consider a different school with maybe?
Well, we just had a presentation from, North Stonington, and the North Stonington tuition is $11,433. It is less, but NFA offers the, what they're looking for, and they listed in their letter was a diverse, experience, and it is a larger school, and there are, some for a foreign language person, additional opportunities. The other thing is, I met with Brian Kelly, the director of NFA, and yesterday at our partners meeting, he was saying that he had some 69 foreign students that used to come to NFA and would be paying tuition. I think it was $27,000 each. And next year he has one. And they've had to do incredible layoffs at NFA for next year, and there are some challenges. So, but this is a unique thing. But Megan, if you have that idea, then revisit it in April, and I might be able to come back and see what's happening with the enrollment. If there's a way that could be a no cost because of the student enrollment, that might be, that might be an approach.
Well, it's certainly a better, more optimal solution, I think.
Aren't we opening up ourselves? Like, I see both
Absolutely.
sides. I definitely see both sides. I feel for both sides. The question becomes is, all right, well then who's to say that Chris can't bring his cousin from the Czech, and bring him here for a year and send him to NFA, or Arica to do the same thing, or me to do the same thing, or I bring in 5 kids from Guatemala, you know what I mean? And like, if we do for one, we're opening ourselves up to all the others. I mean, it sounds horrible, but again, most other towns have their own high school, and it's just the way it is. But, there's many other people in town that don't have kids like yourself, Chris, that pay your taxes, Your taxes go to the school, and you don't have kids. I mean, you're talking about kids coming out from other countries coming here to learn at our expense. As much as I hear
Like a
both
shared
sides,
expense is this.
it's opened. You're opening it up to everybody being able to do this. And where do we stop it? And how do you stop it? Because once you let one in, you've opened that door, and you're not going to be able to stop other people. Like, Valerie could bring in her cousin from New York and say, hey, they're going to go to school here for the next 2 years. You let those people bring in, the person from another country. I pay taxes too. So I want my 2 cousins to come here. Are we going to be able to stop that? No. So I'm sorry, but my answer would be just a flat out no on it.
Thank you for your comments, Scar. I think there is a level of precedence that we have to be considerate of, for sure. That's a point to be made. I think this particular J1 is a and the avenue they're looking for is from the Department of State. It's a very specific channel, but they have to be sponsored, and it is a state oriented type of cultural experience. But again, I don't know. Yeah, where do we're encouraging something and approving it, but we're encouraging a cultural experience. So it is a two-sided thing that I do think it's a hard decision.
Well, can we go back to the state and ask them to pay the tuition?
Another alternative.
Well,
So Adam, do you need a motion based on what I said, or no?
I think it gives me a path to go. So I mean.
Okay, so to make a motion we will provide transportation, but will not cover the cost of the tuition to attend NFA.
I'll second that.
Okay. I know Dee Dee will wordsmith it for me. Not so
Okay.
good with motion wording.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstained?
Scart, did you Scart, the motion was to
To
not allow.
Right, but you're offering to pay for the busing, but not the school. So it's kind of like, all right, you open one door.
Yep, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I came across. I'm not so good with words.
I appreciate that though. No.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. All right, so we're moving on to new business. I did want to make a quick note, since this is policy heavy, that our policy review committee met in between meetings to review what was on the agenda last time, the bylaw 9321 involving the use of internet. And so Megan and I reviewed parts of that, and we'll come back to at the next board meeting with an update for you there. We're not interested in adding the bylaw. It's more of a to think of where we can update our code of ethics. And I think that's where we're going to take it. So we'll share that with you next board meeting. So you didn't know where it just flew off the agenda. For item number 1, policy 0523, equity and diversity. This is a first reading. I think for all of these are first readings. If you want to make comments on them now, or we want to, in the interest of time, move along, we can do that too, to save ourselves till the next meeting.
I'll make a motion that we move this policy to the second reading at the.
Okay. Dee Dee, do we need to make a motion to,
No, you can
the
just
standard-
table it to the second.
Yeah, the standard
Meeting, yeah.
procedure has been to have a policy for the first reading at one meeting, and then automatically it's placed on the agenda for the next board meeting for a second reading. So we don't need, a motion. That's just one of the standard practices that we have.
okay. So,
The minutes will reflect first reading, first reading.
right, okay. And then number
And
2, policy
second reading
regulation.
The next meeting.
Same thing.
Okay, same thing for policy regulation appendix 6172 spot 4. Okay. No discussion on that. We'll move those to the April meeting for second reading. Item number 3 is non-renewal of non-tenured teachers. I saw your letter, Adam.
Yes, and there's a motion for this. And it's a
Yes.
standard motion, and just to go through this, the Board of Education approves pursuant to the Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-151, that the Voluntown Board of Education non-renew the following non-tenured teacher contract. Belinda Lavender. The board further moves the superintendent of school be directed to communicate this action of the board in writing, and that the superintendent of schools be authorized to respond on behalf of the Board of Education to any request for a hearing if required by law or other data which may be forthcoming from the teacher and or her representative pursuant to the applicable provisions of Connecticut's General Statutes 10-151, and further move that the superintendent be directed that any response to the request for a hearing, if a hearing is required by law, indicate that such hearing is to be before the Board of Education. That is the motion, so we need somebody to say they approve that motion.
Adam, I know last year we went through this and we still were able to absorb those teachers. Is that the plan this year, or?
No, we don't have the funds to replace this person.
Okay, all right.
Do we have a motion with regret?
I'll make the motion.
I don't like it, but I'll second it.
Okay, Val, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, motion carries. With regret. Directly, I assume, relates to our declining enrollments. Moving along to item number 4, staffing projections.
Yes, at this time, this is the 2021-22 staffing projections. As noted, the person that you just non-renewed is not on this list. That is a savings. And the other thing is on this list is a foreign language teacher to be determined. So that's what's happening. We do get an intern each year, and that intern we pay for with an outside grant. It's been traditional and it's been very worthwhile. And we do have a custodian that we may be looking at for that, but that might not come on until mid-year. So those are the things that are happening right now with the staffing. And of course, if you notice transportation coordinator, that's to be determined. So this is where we are at this point, and it could change if there's any retirements or if there's any resignations for next year. And of course, in keeping with our process, if somebody does leave, we look and we really evaluate that to see if that person needs to be replaced. That's it for the staffing.
I know you look at this so closely, Adam, and obviously we have some interesting class changes between smaller classrooms always going up and the shuffling. So I give you and Amy and the whole staff a
Yes,
large shout out for that.
I rely on Amy's good judgment because she's there in the day-to-day activities, and I really think that her recommendations are generally very, very accurate. So thank you, Amy.
So with that third grade, is that going to be a constant shuffle all the way up through 8th grade?
Yes, it will be.
Wow. It's going to be rough, especially when we get up to those middle school years, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers.
And then we also have, if you look at kindergarten, that's a singleton. And that may be a singleton class all the way up through.
We gotta get those home shows into Voluntown and start flipping these houses into bigger bedrooms and getting this town built up. Get these kids in here, families. We have a like a little brochure on how awesome Voluntown is. Anyway, okay. Item number 5 is healthy food certification and authorization of the sale of food.
This has to be 3 motions. And we have to document the minutes of this meeting and submit it with the healthy food application to obtain, the certification. Each is, the first is regarding food exemptions, the second is regarding beverage, and the third is regarding food and beverage exemptions as well. And it just talks about the different information, but we need to go through this one by one with board members making a motion and somebody seconded. I'm not sure we need to read the first.
I'll read it, Adam. I have the 3 motions if you want me to read them.
Yes.
I love to spew the words out here. So all ears here. We've got motion number 1. It's about 7 paragraphs. The Board of Education will allow the sale of students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. The sale is in connection with the event occurring at the end of a regular school day or on the weekend. The sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. School day is a period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food sales. All in favor? Or motion? Who has a motion?
Yeah. Motion, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I saw Megan's hand. Do you want to make the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Kristen and Scott. All in favor?
They are
Aye.
quite specific, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, motion number 2, regarding beverage exemptions. The Board of Education will allow the sale to students of beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. Number 1, the sale is in connection with the event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. Number 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And number 3, the beverages are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. The school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the beverage sales. Okay,
Yeah.
motion made by Megan, second,
Second.
Val. Valerie, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, last motion regarding food and beverage exemptions. Board of Education or governing authority will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided the following conditions are met. Number one, the sale is in connection with the event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. Number two, the sale is at the location of the event. Number three, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or at the school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, interscholastic debates, or even events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. Okay. The regular school day is a period from midnight to before 30 minutes and after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
I second.
Okay, Megan and Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Is that like to have like an ice cream truck at a soccer game or something? Is that
Elsa? You know they call each other bologna sandwich.
No, you call it bologna sandwich? You call Cassidy bologna sandwich? Oh.
Hey now, no personal items at the board meeting.
That's right. Okay. Go to bed. It's too late. Go to bed. I know you know why you're not.
I know those were lengthy motions, but I will take the grant every year. And, it's very helpful for our school lunch program.
just no ice cream for the debate kids, apparently?
Yeah. Okay, so we're done with healthy food, correct? We can move on to number 6, Adam?
Yes.
Okay, personnel. Retirement on 7/1/21 of Terry Shanette, our transportation coordinator. Oh, such a loss. But good for her. Very excited for her retirement. That's a great achievement. How long has she been working with us?
31 years of service, and I just have to say that the letter that Terry wrote was very gracious, and she just really talks about the time she took in making the decision, and we've accomplished a great deal during this time. She's seen a large turnover in drivers in the department's history, but rose to the challenge, and they were able to recruit and train an awesome team of drivers. And well, I'm very proud of the accomplishments, and important to point out that none of them could have been achieved without the commitment, dedication, and hard work displayed by her team of drivers. She looks forward to retirement. She will truly miss Voluntown, and we really offer Terry the best. So this was a big decision for us. And of course, we run our own transportation department, which is much different than other school districts.
Mm.
So there's a motion to accept the retirement, notice of retirement.
Erica,
Yeah, that's sad.
do we have a second?
I'll second, and I hope she enjoys her much deserved retirement.
With her grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
But you can't call a school and be like, hi, my son needs to go today. Oh yeah, got it. I know exactly. And then she knows exactly where you live. It's amazing.
And I just the kudos to Terry, obviously this in this year above all years that we've had to manage the high schools alone and all of their changes and everything that went on with the real coordination and behind the scenes changes day to day. I mean, I think, it's just such significant work. Not everyone kind of understands, and Terry's she's just a professional at it. And I mean, we've been so lucky to have her during this difficult time. She's earned it. Well, her time off. But thank you, Terry, from the board. Do we approve it? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with regret. Okay, item number 7, the job description for the transportation coordinator has been included.
I
Yes,
have
there's
one,
just,
I have one recommendation on it. You have a CDL under, and basically the ability to drive a bus under preferred qualifications, but then you have areas of the job description that state that they are basically a backup for the bus drivers. So if you anticipate this new person having to be a backup driver, I think we should make that required, that they have CDL and are able to drive a school bus.
you know, but good point. Let's work that out with, I want to make that a qualification because the person has to have a CDL. So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I know
let's
I
just
definitely.
take out, Megan, does take out desire and fulfill that? And just say other qualification.
I think she's saying it should be under qualifications, right, Megan?
Yeah, I would just move that right up to, current.
Okay, so I'll make that the final bullet. Okay, good. Nice point. Yeah.
Yeah, I just figured, because I know I've seen Terry driving the buses, so I figured that was probably a need for you guys.
Is there
The
any
other-
additional endorsement that they're going to, it says number 16, provide driver training. Is there any additional endorsement this person would need in order to be able to provide that driver training? Any other certifications that are going to be required in order to fulfill that part of their job?
Terry has a certification. She went away for the driver training, and we can do that here. At this point in time, that's all we've had. I didn't make it a mandated type of thing because in actuality, she does, how can I put this? Many people send drivers away to get the training. It's kind of like an after hour thing, and it can't be done during the school time. So Terry gets an additional, wage for training. And so I just put down, this is all we've had on the job description to provide driver training. And that could mean on her own, if they do it on her own, we'd honor that fee, but she might have to set up training from an outside resource and send the drivers out. So that's why it's worded that way, Valerie, but good pickup. That was, that's an issue that's part of this job. We've been fortunate that Terry has her CDL and also has her certification for training.
So do we want to make a motion to accept the job description as amended?
Well, if you can approve this, then we would make the edits. And when people are asking for the application and a description of the job, I'll just make sure that this shows this job description was revised on 3/11/21.
Hey, Adam.
That'd be very helpful if the board approved it.
Adam, what does it cost to send someone out for training?
We haven't had to do that because Terry has done the training.
So maybe we should find out how much that is first, because if it's like $10,000 or $15,000, do we?
No,
really...
I don't think it's that high.
I'm just well, again, we're trying to do a zero budget here. If we bring somebody on that has to go get that training to train our other bus drivers, that's going to be an additional expense where we could try to find somebody that already has it.
We have a professional development section with the bus drivers. I think that the budget as proposed can handle that position.
So what you're saying is that you won't be coming back to the board if they don't have that certification now have to go
That's,
get it.
that's what I'm saying, Scott.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
We have a motion. More formally, to accept the updated job description as amended for the transportation coordinator.
It's a motion to accept the job description.
Yeah, the update, this job,
with
this is an
changes.
updated job description as amended based on what we just discussed.
As amended. Yeah. I
As
think-
amended.
As it changes, yeah. Right, as I said, yeah.
Okay, so Valerie, thank you. You have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Any abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Getting back to this number 8 foreign language program proposal. Did we review that?
We did review it when we were going through the budget. I think we're going to have to delay, I think, posting and advertising for this position until the next budget meeting to see where the board is on that. So until there's a decision by the board to move forward, we wouldn't have a proposal to approve.
Okay. I'll consider that a review of what we already discussed
Tabled
tonight.
until April.
Okay. So our suggestions for the next regular meeting, the upcoming budget hearing and BOE meeting is April 8th for your calendars. We'll be reviewing our budget preparation timeline, obviously, for 2021, review van bids, any personnel updates, and the added policies for second review, and an updated code of ethics for first review. With that, if there's nothing else, we'll need a motion to move to executive session.
And include Amy Sufaletto. Move to executive session, but include Amy Sufaletto
Okay.
and myself.
Okay, a motion to move to executive session with Amy Sapoletto and Adam Barros.
Yes.
Okay, Marka.
Oh.
Did Scott, did you make a motion?
No, it was Megan made the motion. Arika seconded it. I was.
Oh,
gonna
okay,
second for
thank
Megan,
you.
but
I can't see people.
it's okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move to executive session. Motion move to executive session at 10:02.